Your Detroit Red Wings have a fantastic weekend. They take 2 games, and Brian Fisher is still bald.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Red Wings. I am your host, Scott Bentley. Brian Fisher, notably on his honeymoon. Congratulations to Brian and Allison. Their wedding was like a long time ago. I was there. But they're just now taking their honeymoon at this pivotal point in the Red Wings season. So all complaints can go his way. Today is Monday, April 7th, 2025. Thank you so much for making us over at Locked On Red Wings your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that, of course, do tune in every day. You can catch us on audio and on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. The Red Wings had a fantastic weekend. I'm also realizing there's a lot of firsts happening over here for this episode. So Brian will be on his honeymoon all week, which means you'll be stuck with just me all week. I apologize in advance. Brian brings a lot to this program on camera and a ton behind the scenes. So I apologize for only having to be stuck with yours truly. If you don't listen to Locked On Tigers, you're just not a baseball fan, you hate my guts, whatever. I'm realizing, first off, you maybe have never seen my full wall. This is everything in the apartment. This is the studio. Looks kind of cool. And also, I have a slightly different format that I have over at Locked On Wings. Well, goodness. See, I already can't keep it straight. I have a different format because I do Locked On Tigers by myself. So I have a format to break down games over at Locked On Tigers that does not look quite the same as the format Brian and I have over here at Locked On Wings. So for this week and this week only, you get a little bit of a curveball thrown at you, and we're going to break things down like how I do over at Locked On Tigers, just because that's how I'm comfortable when it comes to doing 30 minutes of a show by myself. Not new to me. Been doing Locked On Tigers alone for 4 years now. So we'll be fine. But I just wanted to give everyone, if it sounds a little different or, there's not any beautiful Corsi 4 percentage or expected goals 4 percentage talk. I might throw some in there just for Brian, but might sound a little bit different. So the Wings take 2 over the weekend. Obviously, they needed it, and that's kind of we will start with my first thought. 5-3 victory over Carolina on Friday, 2-1 victory over the Florida Panthers on Sunday. This was obviously a great weekend, but I think. Man, I hate coming on here and like the first thing I say is negative. I think it probably still is ultimately too little too late for the second year in a row, right? Where you have a giant collapse in March and then you do well again in April and you make it so that when the final standings come out, like you just barely missed, but you do ultimately fall short. I think that's probably still somewhat inevitable. But regardless, we can throw out the negative Nelly in the room, right? And just focus on the positive vibes of sweeping the weekend and right going 2-0 is that no matter what the odds are of making the playoffs, to keep your hopes alive, period, you needed to win both of these games. And that's what the Detroit Red Wings did. So, yeah, man, like in order to stay alive, this is what you needed. And they did it in honestly, I don't want to just like throw around the word great, but like these were 2 really solid performances. This was done in really, really nice fashion. So we're going to break things down into, instead of difference maker and then notable performers and whatnot, like Brian and I usually do, we're going to do what went right from the weekend and what went wrong. That's just how I break things down over at Tigers. Again, it's what I'm comfortable with when I'm doing a show by myself. So that's how we're going to format it today. What went right? Certainly Cam Talbot. He had a solid performance on Friday, right? That was a solid, decent finish with a save percentage over 900, allowed 3 goals that would have been. But Carolina, yeah, that's the right team actually. Carolina had a push late as well, where kind of the shots skyrocketed up, and he kind of had to play on his head a little bit more. But I thought he was solid in that game, and he was fantastic on Sunday. That is genuinely one of the better performances we've seen from him. I was going to say all year, but that's probably not true, just because the first 2 months of the season, Cam Talbot was just kind of on a different level. But it's the first time we've seen that version of him in a while, and I think that means something. This is a conversation that Brian and I have had a lot over the last couple of weeks, is just like, what's your level of trust or faith in the goaltending situation in Detroit right now, and how the future of that kind of heavily relies on Augustine and Kosa, but currently not really using the two of them as a scapegoat to like not answer the question. If you are to ask I was going to say a normal Red Wings fan, or any of us truly normal. If you were to ask any really, I guess, Red Wings fan, just kind of what their confidence in the goaltending situation is, I would imagine not too many are going to come back and say that it's super confident rather. But I think that this is where you see the value in Cam Talbot, being that like this guy still has the talent to be a solid NHL goaltender. He's just pushing 40 and can't be your 1A anymore. Like, I don't think it's rocket science. I don't think this is some super tough, complicated concept that's really difficult to understand. Like, he is still talented. He still has the ability to in spurts, like not even just game to game, but still like for the last week, he's been pretty darn solid. Right? I mean, this is like very similar to what we saw with, and I'm not comparing these two goaltenders, okay? Two very, very different careers. I'm not saying their talent is equal. I'm just saying that situation-wise, it's kind of similar to like what we saw with Quick, right? Was like, okay, this guy, everyone thought he was washed and like he's terrible. And then it's like, okay, well, now he only has to play once every other week, and he's still really good in that role. And that's not to that extreme in any direction, right? I'm not trying to say Cam Talbot is or has ever been Jonathan Quick, but I think that we're seeing a similar case of like, okay, if we can be in a situation where this dude has to play 30 games next year, 25, 30 games next year, that I think there still is value to be had in this player. And I think the last week kind of exemplifies that and really highlights that point. The penalty kill was also fantastic this weekend. A perfect 100% throughout the whole weekend. Now, one of the other things that kind of goes hand in hand with the PK success is the lack of finding themselves in the box. Like the Wings just didn't commit too many penalties over the weekend. I think total between both games, the penalty kill went 3 for 3. So not too many opportunities, but that's what you need. You can't commit a ton of penalties and have the worst penalty kill I've ever seen. Like you have to pick a lane. And if you are going to consistently have the worst penalty kill I've ever seen, then the least you can do for all of us is not commit very many penalties so that egregious group is not on the ice too terribly often. And I think they did both this weekend, especially on Sunday. I thought that kill actually looked really, really solid. Maybe one high danger opportunity there on the back door, but I thought that was a pretty solid effort all around. Let's talk Alex DeBrincat. Okay. He had a fantastic weekend. We got a few other notable performers from the duo of games as well. We'll get into those. We'll talk about what went wrong, which is not a whole lot. Not going to complain too terribly much. We'll end the show with some other news and notes from the weekend. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Indeed. You just realized your business needs to hire someone yesterday. You can find any amazing candidates really fast with Indeed. It's that easy. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. So stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in a spot where I need the right hire or I need a job. Over the last couple of years, that has happened. As listeners of this show know, my job title changed on this show. Brian's intro for what my job was changed at the beginning of the year. Indeed was a huge help in that process. And the pressure can get to you every day without the right person behind your back. And that's exactly why Indeed's sponsored jobs comes in handy. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saving and saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Indeed, you do. Brian can't stop me. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Appreciate y'all so much for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in and listen to Brian and I ramble every day. We do appreciate all of you greatly. That's the words that I was going for. So while Brian, sips drinks and looks cute, we are here talking about a 2-1 victory on Sunday and a 5-3 victory on Friday. One of the other players that really stood out this weekend, we teased it before the break, was Alex DeBrincat. Had goals in both of these hockey games that puts him at 35 on the season, and he is pushing 70 points on the year. I think unless he just goes ice cold here to end the season, it's pretty safe to say that he will end with a point total that is around 70 points. I know that I've been very vocal and kind of a broken record about Cat so far this season and how impressed I have been with him and how much I appreciate the consistency that he has played with, right? That was the biggest thing, is when he came on board, it was okay, we have a consistent goal scorer. And when the goals aren't finding the back of the net, and when Larkin and Raymond aren't able to be the entire offense on any given night, who are we going to lean on? And I genuinely think that the combination, especially of Kane and Cat, Kane in more of a playmaking role and setting up Cat, and Cat obviously taking advantage, especially on the power play, is what we were asking for in that sense. He's been a lot better at 5-on-5. I mean, compared to last year, my goodness, night and day. But he just, in general, the consistency in which he is putting up goals is what we used to pray for times like this. Like that's how I feel. So really solid. Again, good weekend. And looks like he's going to have one of the better years over. I mean, you look at the season he had in Ottawa, they were all disappointed. You look at his first year in Detroit, we were disappointed. This is going to be his best season in a few years. And that's really awesome to see. JT Compher scored a goal on Sunday. I don't think this was like the best weekend as a whole from Compher. I think he honestly struggled on Friday's game, especially, but really nice to see him find the back of the net because he just scored again last week as well. I think like JT Compher's a guy that I think is here to stay. And I know that there's going to be a lot of conversations surrounding who makes it through the offseason, who is maybe a cap space casualty, who they try to maybe put on the trade block over the summer. I would be surprised, just based on production level and salary, if they were able to. And I don't know. I go back and forth. I'm not even sure they should be like actively trying to trade him. I know some people have been really hard on him throughout this year, but I think that there is still a role for him. And I think last year we saw that, what Compher is able to do when he's at his best. He just hasn't been a very good point producer this year. So we'll see what happens, but I think it is in everyone's best interest for him to have a really good end to the season year and hopefully try to carry that momentum into the summer and into next fall, where when he isn't given the responsibility of being being asked to give the production level of a traditional 2C, right, the second line center. I think that in pretty much any other role, he's going to be a guy that you are going to get decent production out of. It's just a matter of if that's possible going forward. So, again, nice to see him score a goal, even though it maybe wasn't the greatest weekend in the world for him. I thought Tyler Mott had a heck of a game on Sunday. Obviously, limited playing time is never going to be a guy that is going out there for, 18, 20, 22 minutes. But in his limited playing time, had a heck of a game on Sunday, man. A couple of really nice passes for starters, which is not something we usually talk about when it comes to Tyler Mott. But on top of that, is a guy that consistently brings defense. And the difference on Sunday was that aggressive forecheck and not overly aggressive to the point where they were giving up, rushes the other direction, but continued pressure specifically in the neutral zone. It's so fascinating how the neutral zone doesn't have to be neutral, right? It is neutral by name, but you can dominate the neutral zone. It's possible. I swear it's possible. I know this is like an old, fairy tale, and it's hard to believe because you've been watching Red Wings hockey over the last 8 years, but like it is actually possible to have the upper hand in the neutral zone, believe it or not. And I felt like, especially for the first two periods, really in both of these games, the Red Wings were able to do that. You don't have to be overly aggressive on the forecheck to the point where you're sending everybody in the defensive or in your offensive zone, in your opponent's defensive zone, right? That you don't have to be overly aggressive, but you can be aggressive enough to kind of bully and take away any passing lanes and knock the puck off sticks in the neutral zone and get the puck back to your possession. And I thought that was a really big deal on Friday's game against the Carolina team that notoriously dominates possession and didn't against the Detroit Red Wings. And I think that is one of the things they did really well. And then Florida is just a physical team, man. Like that is bully puck at its finest. I mean, they lead the league in hits. I was going to say every month, but that would just equate to on the season. But, their hits a game just across the board. It's such a physical style, and a style that Brian and I have talked about a lot over the years, is a style that really tries to get you to make a mistake. And it's like, okay, we are going to start a scrum and a scuffle. And you know what? If we go to the box, that's fine because we're taking you with us. And the Wings did such a good job of avoiding that on Sunday. They did such a fantastic job. And so I want to give a lot of credit to the game plan and to that. I think the forecheck was just a really, really solid way to utilize that, not backing down, not playing scared hockey, but in the same breath, not costing your team mistakes by trying to be overly physical and retaliate every time they hit you either. I thought it was a masterclass. Good to see Elmer Soderblom back there. Another guy that is incredibly valuable and effective to your team's forecheck. And I hope that he can stay healthy and continue doing that, because with the amount of length he has, like it is impossible to pass around if he just has, his arms out and has his stick on the ice. So that's something that was apparent. He had a couple of forced giveaways in Sunday's game as well. I thought Marco Kasper had an absolutely stellar weekend. You saw him in the corners and against the boards really consistently. I thought he was kind of everywhere. And even though he doesn't walk out of this weekend with a ton of points necessarily, I thought he deserves recognition for how good of a weekend he had. I had a couple of really nice high danger opportunities on Sunday with shots on net, and was just, again, able to, he's going to be so valuable if he reaches his ceiling, man, because you can deploy him in any situation and feel so good about it. And those type of players are not super common. So really excited about his next year as well. Patrick Kane, another really solid offensive producing weekend. He probably should have had another assist on Sunday as well. He just continues to be absolutely incredible. And on the power play, man, I know this power play wasn't great. I think they went like 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 total on the weekend, 1 for 5 on Sunday and 0 for on Saturday or Friday, whenever the heck they played. But Patrick Kane is I don't need to beat that drum again. You all know the drill. He's incredible on the power play. Everything revolves around him. Literally revolves. Like actually does revolutions around Patrick Kane with the puck. It's pretty fun to watch. Thought Sider had a great game on Friday. He was obviously solid in both. I'm not trying to say he was terrible on Sunday or anything, but I thought if I was to pick a difference maker on Friday, even though he again isn't like directly maybe contributing to points on the board, I thought he was absolutely everywhere, and that's why you pay him the big bucks. Let's talk about what went wrong. I only have a couple of names that I want to kind of highlight for maybe poor weekends as a whole. And then we'll end by kind of recapping, talking about the future, what the next couple of weeks could look like for the Wings, and obviously talking about hockey history made over the weekend as well. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered where the heck did all of my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place, so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery and stuff like that. Now I budget smarter and save even more. It's all in one as well. Like I said, it's not just a budgeting app. It allows you to juggle multiple apps all in one. You can check your finances, you can track your spending, you can even plan long-term goals and investments. It is the best. And managing your money with your partner has never been better. Brian is off with his partner in paradise, 4 years after he got married. That's a joke. But had to save some money to get there. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Red Wings. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, even without our beautiful bald-headed friend. So the Red Wings had a fantastic weekend. We want to focus on the fact that they had a fantastic weekend. Okay, I'm not trying to take anything away. This is just how I break down games in my head, right? Nobody's perfect. No game is perfect, or at least very few are. So what were the shortcomings from the weekend? What maybe went wrong? I thought Tarasenko had a brutal weekend, which is not like super new to everybody at this point. He did have a couple of, again, forecheck forced turnovers, had a poke check or two on Sunday. So I want to give him credit for that, because if you're not going to produce offensively like you were signed to, at least, try to provide something defensively. And I thought he did that a couple of times. But as a whole, man, it just felt like anytime his line was on the ice, not very good things were happening for the Wings. Definitely on Sunday, but honestly, you could probably take that and kind of just say both of these games. I thought Justin Holl and Aljo both kind of struggled as well. Not playing together the entire weekend, but at times. Yeah, man, like I don't even really know what else to say. Aljo's a rookie at the end of the longest season probably of his entire life. And Justin Holl is a guy that everybody wanted gone last summer, is still here. And I'm sure people will talk about removing him from the roster and trying to find a way out of that money this summer again as well. So like neither are super surprising. I still think Aljo has had a fantastic year, and this doesn't take away from that whatsoever. Just a rough weekend out there. And it didn't cost, none of this cost the Red Wings games. So ultimately, that's all I got. I'm not going to spend too much more time complaining about such a successful weekend. Let's talk about some other news and notes that don't really fall in either of those categories that I just want to talk about. I just thought that Sunday's game especially, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but was such a professional game. That was really, I think that's how this team should have played all year, man. And I that's like really easy to say after two victories against better teams, but like this is the this was my expectation for how this team would look down the stretch, like before the collapse. We have seen this team on absolute fire, where even when they screwed up and had major shortcomings, they were still winning. And then we saw domination in games where every shot seemed to find the back of the net. We have seen them do the opposite, where they have had an epic collapse, obviously since Four Nations, and nothing went right. Even when they were the better team, they weren't winning games. This was consistent hockey every period. And I think that this is what you should try to emulate permanently going forward. And again, I'm not just talking about the results. No team's obviously going to go 82-0. I'm saying the style. Like, did they look way better than either team this weekend? No. But they were playing neck and neck with two teams that are better rosters and obviously better records than you. They were toe-to-toe. They made life difficult for both teams. And they were not, as we talked about earlier, playing into what the other teams wanted to do in either of those games. Neither was some crazy dominant performance that made you go, oh my goodness, like that, this is crazy and unsustainable. Like the Wings look so much better. No, what we saw was a sustainable product. That is a way to consistently win games. Really good, solid hockey. Just go toe-to-toe with your opponent. 3 whole periods in both of these games. Carolina made a little bit of a push in the second half of the third period. But especially Florida, like you saw the push coming and then it wasn't. Just like that. They were able to stop it in its tracks, man. I absolutely loved it. And I just think that not in like you're playing to your opponent's way, even though that's probably a little bit true. I thought it was so impressive that they played, calm, collective, competitive hockey for all 6 periods this weekend. And didn't really matter who was standing across from them. Didn't dominate, didn't need to dominate. And this team isn't going to dominate for 82 games. Looking like that is how you put up a decent season start to finish, and you don't go on 2 7-game winning streaks and then lose every game for 3 years straight. Consistent brand. That is what should be emulated going forward. Ovi, Alexander Ovechkin, the greatest goal scorer in the history of our beautiful game of hockey. Just an awesome moment. I think from the perspective of a fan base that Ovi is obviously not a part of, and he did not really have any of these goals down the stretch against the Wings, right? Like we weren't really like a part of the chase. This was strictly just third party. You're a fan of the game of hockey and the sport, and you had to watch. It's so awesome to see just history. That was a record that, along with really all of Gretzky's records, that was a record that at the time nobody thought was obtainable. And the fact that it was in all of our lifetimes is just the coolest thing ever. Like how lucky are we to be able to see from start to finish Ovechkin's career? Just unbelievable. Really, really cool. And I think the coolest part for me, again, as like a third party, quote unquote, here in this whole thing was just seeing hockey on the map like that. Hockey was the biggest story in all of sports this weekend. And that's awesome, right? Going into the weekend, he starts it off with 2 goals to tie it. And you're like, is he going to break the record on a hat trick? Right? Seeing all the awesome graphics that aren't, made up by a computer and like a graphic designer spent a lot of time and effort making, and seeing like the logo for him, seeing his family. The ceremony mid-game was crazy. I'm not even going to lie. That is wild. I don't even hate it necessarily. Like it's history. You're only going to see this once, but that was a crazy move. They rolled out a carpet and like posters and a mic for like mid-game. That was really wild. But it was just so cool to see hockey at the forefront of the sports world. That does not happen very often. And I feel like between Four Nations and this, this has just been such a successful marketing year for the game of hockey. And in my eyes, that can only lead to better and better things as the sport continues to hopefully grow and grow because of that. So thank you to Ovechkin for all that he has done for the sport, obviously, and for this fantastic moment that even though we are not, our team is not a part of this, really all of hockey is a part of this, and seeing him do that. So awesome weekend for the NHL. That's pretty much all I got. Like this next game, Tuesday, we'll preview it a little bit more tomorrow. It's the biggest game of the season. And you can kind of say that about every single game, the rest of the way until they're either in the playoffs or mathematically eliminated. But on Tuesday, you play Montreal in Montreal. That is the biggest game of the season. And if you win, you have a chance. Is it still a really, really, really small chance? Yes, it is. Okay. I'm not saying if you win on Tuesday, you're like in it, right? But you do give yourself a chance. At the time of this recording, the Wings are, that was the division. Let me pull up wild card. 6 games back. Montreal, unfortunately, did beat the Preds on Sunday. Man, the Predators, just a brutal season, eh? That's wild for all the expectations they had going into the year as well. So yeah, you're 6 points back. It's not going to be easy. You only got a couple of weeks left in the season here. But if you do want any chance, you got to go into Montreal, go into Quebec, and walk out of there with a win. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every single day. Appreciate you all greatly for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow. Brian will still be sipping on, I don't know, whatever he drinks. Water with a straw. A weirdo. Brian is bald. And we ball. Good peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. That's how I end my baseball show. And I'll catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Go Red Wings.